Caitlin's question was, I narrow strengthen questions specifically, I narrow them down to 2 a lot. And I have a hard time differentiating between the last 2 answers. Excellent question. I think my advice is not really related to strengthen questions specifically as much as it is related to all logical reasoning questions, period. You're probably doing the test too passively, hoping that A is correct, then hoping that B is correct, then hoping that C is correct, then hoping that D is correct, then hoping that E is correct. Next thing you know, you've got 2 good answers or more, you know. You got to flip that and you got to do the test more actively. You have to expect A to be wrong. It needs to convince you that it's right. You don't help the answer choice. The answer choice has to stand on its own. Far more frequently, I get through all 5 answers and hate all of them than I get through 5 answers and I think 2 or more of them have a chance. That's because I'm aggressive and active and critical, and I expect answer choices to be wrong. Every answer is wrong, presumptively wrong. What y'all do, especially brand new students, and again, welcome to the LSAT team, but what brand new students tend to do is they try to help answer choices. They read A trying to make it correct. And instead, you need to read A expecting it to be wrong. If you do it that way, you're going to far less often end up in a situation where you think there's 2 good answers. Another way of thinking about it is, or another way of at least getting this point across, is that you should frequently hate all 5. You should be like, that's wrong because this, that's wrong because that, that's wrong because that, that's wrong because whatever, that's wrong because whatever. Oh shit, whoops. Well, one of them does have to be right. And then you have to go through and like sort of double eliminate the ones that you're sure are wrong and then kind of do a process of elimination and narrow it down. But most of the time, you know, A is wrong and most of the time B is wrong. And so you have to let those answers convince you that they're right instead of you hoping for them to be right. Okay, that's like phase 1 of my advice on this question. My other bit of advice is that you need to be predicting the answers in the first place. So you need to be attacking the argument, telling them why their argument is bullshit. And even though it's a strengthening question, the correct answer very frequently is going to correct for what you have already identified as a weakness in the argument. This is, by the way, why we don't read the question stem first. I have a inkling that you might be reading the question stem first. If you are, that's a terrible strategy, and that's probably causing your problem here. But whether or not you are reading the question stem first, if you are, you got to stop doing that. You got to read the argument instead. And you always attack the argument. We're going to be super critical of the argument. We're going to tell them why their conclusion does not necessarily follow from their premises. And then when we find out that it's a strengthening question, we might have an idea that, oh, well, I saw that this was a giant hole in the argument. I was yelling about the hole in the argument. The correct answer very frequently is going to plug that gap in the argument. And that's predicting the answer. That's doing the test actively instead of doing the test passively. The right answer it can be like similar in type to the answer you predicted. It's good that you're predicting answers. No, we're not going to always predict exactly the answer. You'll see me, probably tonight, you'll see me make a prediction and that will not be the right answer. Nonetheless, I'm tuned in to what the right type of answer would be. Like I'm going to predict something that would be a good answer if it were there. But if it's not there, that's fine. There's lots of different ways that we could strengthen an argument. There's lots of different ways that we could weaken an argument. There are certain question types, though, where I'm going to be a little bit stickier on my prediction. Sufficient assumption questions have to take the evidence that we have and force the conclusion that we want. And sufficient assumption questions are super predictable for that reason. Main conclusion questions as well. You have to be able to tell them what the conclusion of the argument is, and you should predict what you want, and then you've got to go find what you want. But strengthen questions have a wide range of possible answers. Same with weaken. Strengthen, it's just, hey, which one of these 5 helps the argument the most? And you might have made a prediction that would be great, but if it's not listed, you got to roll with it and pick the next best thing, the one that helps the argument somewhat. Usually the wrong answers are really, really wrong. I mean, the wrong answers are really bad. Like, they'll either weaken the argument or they'll be totally irrelevant. And you should be able to, you predict it, and then you also do a process of elimination. So sometimes you nail it. You'll also see me do that tonight, probably. Other times you make a prediction and then it's not there. So you have to just kind of chop away the 4 obviously wrong answers, and you'll be left with the one that's right.